Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. 6 years after the terrible mess, the terrible tragedy to Halloween fans called Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers came out back in '89, same year Batman. The same year Scream came out, which is 1995. 6 years later, like I said, we had the newest entry of Halloween, one of the most controversial. It's one that my opinion is going to be very, very controversial about because of how mixed I am on it. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, or Halloween 666, The Curse of Michael Myers. This is my original copy. When I was growing up, as I said in my previous couple of reviews, I didn't even know this movie even existed. I saw bits and pieces, like the final shot of the movie, in the theatrical version that I'm currently reviewing. When I was a kid, I would see the movie play on TV, and I think I used to blend those few pieces of that movie, or this movie, with Halloween 5. I don't know why. I didn't see Halloween 5 a whole lot when I was a kid either. I saw fragments like every single year on AMC, Sci-Fi Channel, all those things. And I think eventually I just kind of blended the two into one. But I never really saw the full movie until about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, when I bought this set. As I had heard so much about it, I didn't know what the Cult of Thorn was, even though it's kind of introduced in 5 a little bit. I didn't know anything about that stuff. So I went into this film for the first time about 11 years ago, when I bought this copy with my grandmother in Kmart, alongside pretty much every Puppet Master movie at the time. And I watched it, and I hated it deeply. I hated it deeply. But then the second time I watched it, and something about it stuck with me. The movie is very, very flawed, as pretty much all of the Halloween films are. And yet I love this one. The more that I've watched it over the years, the more I've become obsessed with it. There's something about it that really just clicks with me, and I really like it, mainly because it's style over substance. Now, the original John Carpenter film is style over substance as well, and whether you like that or not, it is dependent on what you like. But for me, that 1990s style to this movie, before Scream came out, again, the same year, so I assume not too long before or after this movie came out was when that film came out, and that film heavily affected the next film, H2O. I saw this movie over and over again, and now every year when I rewatch these movies, or at least a chunk of them, I always look forward to watching this one. I've always really enjoyed it. Now, for people who don't know, there are two versions. There is this original theatrical version. This is the only version I own until this new Scream Factory box set comes in. Apparently it's coming tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. But for right now, this is the only copy of this movie I own. However, there is a producer's cut, and that recently, in the last couple of years, was released on Blu-ray. You used to only be able to get this on bootleg, and I hadn't seen it until about 2 years ago when this Blu-ray was released. Here is the unrated producer's cut. I don't know when it came out. I assume it was the last 5 years or so, maybe 2015 at the earliest, I think. Anyway, I never saw this. I saw this in a Best Buy dollar bin when I was looking for Daredevil and Punisher on Blu-ray, the Thomas Jane one, and Daredevil with Ben Affleck. And I picked this up for like $5, and I was so stoked about it. I'd never seen it before. I'm currently rewatching this one right now to also do another review on this movie because it's so different from the theatrical cut. This is the one I'm currently making this video for, as the title shows. I'm going to talk about both of them because they are so different. This one's a lot more mystical, has some really stupid things in it, but so does this one. But this one's more of a straight-up slasher movie with some style to it. I don't want to talk about too many of the differences right now, but people who love the Halloween films pretty much have seen both of these versions, I would say. The producer's cut, a lot of people typically prefer. I myself prefer, the theatrical cut. I really, really love it. I think it has quite a few problems, and yet for me, the style really pulls through in a lot of cool ways, in my personal opinion. Now, what's the story of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers? Well, this one came out in 1995. Again, Halloween 5 was so bad, it pretty much killed the franchise for 6 more years, just like Halloween 3, even though that was a really good movie. People were pissed Michael Myers wasn't in that. It killed it until 1988, 6 years. There's something about these movies doing that. I don't know. It happens a lot in this franchise. Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie did the same thing. And Resurrection did the same thing. That happens a lot. A lot. Anyway, so Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, or 666, The Curse of Michael, whatever the title is. It's a very confusing title. It is kind of the conclusion to the Thorn trilogy, even though I don't really think it counts as a Thorn trilogy. It is the first one to not feel like a Halloween movie. It's the first one to not really have Michael Myers lurking around in the dark. You have a couple of moments that are similar to that, but this film, I don't care what anybody says, I don't care what Mustafa Akkad said, I don't care what anybody tells me, I'm convinced that this film was supposed to go direct-to-video. It looks like it, the budget on it looks like it looks like a Sci-Fi Channel movie, and yet, I don't hate that about it. It looks the cheapest out of all of the movies that came before it. And it looks cheap compared to H2O, and even Resurrection. But in my personal opinion, I don't hate it. I think it's kind of cool. I like it. It's something different. It's a little, and not that I'm one of those people that are like, I like The Last Jedi because it's different. I'm not one of those people. I just like that we did a little bit of a modification on the Halloween formula for this movie, but it's heavily flawed, as I said. It pretty much picks up with Jamie, you know, who's not played by Danielle Harris. They really did her wrong, I think. It's not fair. She could have been at the age she should have been for this particular role. A lot of the things people hate about the Curse of Michael Myers movie, this particular version, people mix the producer's cut in with this. There's a lot of things involving Jamie, involving mysticism and whatever, that are more in that movie, the producer's cut, than this movie. The theatrical cut is very direct. It's very much just a slasher movie with some weird stuff in here I'm about to get into in just a moment. But Jamie gets, apparently at some point, was kidnapped and was pregnant, or impregnated, or something, while in captivity by this cult. Now in Halloween 5 at one point we get a close-up at the beginning of Michael's wrist, and we see this thing that looks like a triangle and a line. That's called the Mark of Thorn or something like that, and it has to do with paganism. It kind of ties back, and I do want to say that about this movie, I really like this part, it ties back to the original novelization of the original Halloween movie book, the 78 film. The novelization of that has like a good 3 or 4 chapters based around just paganism and the history of this evil that might possess Michael Myers. It's fascinating. If you haven't read that, if you can find a copy online or something, or a PDF file, or if they ever reproduce the book like they should, that's a really good book. It's really solid, but mainly for that opening chapter, couple of chapters, whatever it is, that tell you a lot about this evil that's contained within Michael Myers. The jealousy, the lust, and the sexual nature of that. It's fascinating stuff. I really like it for a lore type of thing for Halloween and for Michael Myers himself. Very interesting stuff. Really kind of takes the original movie and flips it on its head, in my opinion. And maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know, it kind of depends on what you like. This film really honors a lot of that. Halloween 5 introduced it, but this film is really the Cult of Thorn movie. And what is the Cult of Thorn? Well, basically there are a bunch of people who kind of have Michael Myers being their animal, if you will. You remember at the end of Halloween 5, the ending that happened there that was very bad for an already bad movie, of Michael Myers getting broken out of jail? Yeah. That was the Cult of Thorn who did that, and the Man in Black, who was introduced there, is really a main pivotal character in this movie. His identity revealed, and everything in this film was kind of neat. In my opinion, it is at least. I liked it. So, this movie's a mixed bag. I don't like any of the cult stuff in this theatrical version. I just think it's weird, it feels out of place, because if you see the producer's cut, you understand more of why it's there. But for the overall Halloween franchise, was it a good thing? I don't think so. I don't hate this movie at all. I love the style to it. I like a lot of the characters in here. I like a lot of the performances in here, in my opinion. Some are a little rough or rud. We'll get there. Some of the performances here are rough. Some of the writing is rough. The cult stuff, if that was taken out and this was just a direct slasher film with Michael chasing Jamie at the beginning, who has had a baby in the captivity of this cult, this woman, and the cult helps her escape or whatever. If we had just had a chase with Jamie and Tommy Doyle, who's also in the film, played by Paul Rudd, if we had had just kind of that, I would have been way more on top of this film, really enjoyed it. The theatrical cut has the cult stuff intertwined quite a bit. I don't like it, but I love everything else about the film. And as I go through this review, I'll talk more about that, but I really, really like the film. I feel like I'm the only person on the planet that likes the theatrical cut more than the producer's cut. But not only that, I feel like I'm the only person who really genuinely likes this movie and thinks it's fun to watch. Again, every year when I go back to watch these movies, I always look forward to watching this version. I love it. I think it's a good flick. It's fun to watch. It's quite messy. It's quite choppy. The editing is very, very sloppy to add some style to it. And for some reason, the sound design is messed up on this movie, too. Every time I watch this DVD, it feels like there's an echo. Like there's two different tracks that are just slightly off, that don't line up perfectly, and it feels like there's constantly an echo most of the time. I don't know if that was deliberately or what. When this new Scream Factory box set comes in the mail soon, I'm going to listen to it when I watch the movie again. and see if it sounds like that. I don't know if it's supposed to. Maybe it's just my copy. I don't know. Maybe it's just this release. I don't know. I don't think H2O and Resurrection were like that on this release as well, so it could be a mess up on this version. I don't know. But, so what else can we talk about? Well, Michael Myers, the look of him. I think it's the best it's looked in 2 movies. Since Halloween 2. Well, really, Halloween 2 I like less the look of him, even though it's almost identical. I like the look less of him in that movie than this film. I think this is the best looking Michael, in my opinion, since part 1, for my personal taste. Now, I like Halloween 4's Michael. I like Halloween 2's Michael. Halloween 5 looks like trash. This version of Michael I love. I think George P. Wilbur playing him, he looks really creepy. I like the mask design. It looks so much better than Halloween 5 and 4, in my opinion. Some people like the straight up, just plain white mask, like Halloween 1, 2, and 4 had. I almost said 3, but 4 had. This one's kind of a dirty, grimy mask. It's almost like right before we got to the Rob Zombie Halloween mask. And if you prefer the clear white mask, that is what it is, but I really like the Michael we get in this film. I like the hair on it. I like his suit. I like how he's wearing like a black shirt underneath his jumpsuit coveralls, whatever. It just works for me. I like that version. I like the portrayal of Michael here. The stuff involving his history in the original movie, in this movie, which it ties back to a lot of that. Some people are going to like that a lot. I think a lot of people don't. And I'm kind of one of those people who think it kind of ruins the original movie. It's a little too much. It is what it is. The Jamie stuff is not a big part of the film. Her having a baby, being on the run, is like a good 15 or 20 minutes of this movie, and it's tense, man. It is tense. That's one thing I'll give this movie too. The pacing is fantastic. I really think it just flies by as a movie in a good way. I really like all of that. Aside from the cult stuff, you take that out, the pacing of it, the fun to watch it, all of that stuff is really nice. Now, there's also a fellow, Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, who plays Tommy Doyle here. Tommy Doyle, the original little boy from the original movie that Laurie Strode babysat. He's had a trauma from that original movie that has carried out throughout his entire life. He's probably like 20 years old now. And Paul Rudd lives across the street from the Myers home. And the Myers home, actually, who he's keeping an eye on, has the adoptive family of Laurie Strode living there. It's kind of some relatives there. Not the actual family, but like the brothers. It's like the brother of the dad in that family that adopted Laurie that live in this house because he couldn't sell it. He has his own realty business. It's Strode Realty, just like the original movie. But this particular fellow, he lives there. He has a son, and he has I think it's his daughter, I believe. And she has a son. The dad's not in the picture and whatever. And they've come to live with this family. The mom in the family here is also the mom from Better Off Dead. And I love Better Off Dead. It's my favorite comedy of all time. If you haven't seen that with John Cusack, an old 80s flick, you're missing out. It's hilarious. It's fun. I love it to death. You need to watch that movie. My biggest recommendation for comedy of all time, up beside Wild Hogs for the summertime with Tim Allen and John Travolta. Wild Hogs is amazing. Anyway, so this family is there. Paul Rudd's keeping an eye on them. The main chick who has a son named, I think her name is Cara, right? Yeah, Cara Strode. Aside from Danielle Harris as Jamie in the previous 2 movies, I would say Cara is my favorite female lead in the franchise, as an adult at least. I think she's my favorite. I really, really like her. I think the woman's beautiful. I think she does a very solid performance. Her being a kind of an on-her-own mom, you know, I think that's interesting. I relate to that. My mom had to kind of go through the same thing when my parents split up back in the day. I really like Cara. I think she's very solid. I think she's a cool character. And I like her struggles as a standalone parent, as a person who's also trying to complete college at the same time. She has a lot of things on her plate, not including her dad or stepdad or whatever the scumbag is that runs the house. He's awful. He's just a mean guy. He's just an evil, just scummy person. I can't stand this guy. He's kind of abusive to her too, and that's kind of sad. But the brother character in here, he's really fun. I really like him. But basically, there's also over here on the other side of town, Dr. Loomis, Dr. Sam Loomis, played by Donald Pleasence for the last time. He's alive. I'm kind of surprised, but he's alive after the heart attack he had in Part 5. He also had some surgery to heal up his face, make it look less burnt up from the original Halloween 2 and that injury that's lingered forever. He does that, and all these characters are listening to a radio show from a guy named Barry Sims, I think is his name. He's a raunchy, scummy type of dude, makes fun of people who call him in about Michael Myers at Halloween time and whatever. They're all listening to the show, and everybody hears Jamie call over the radio on this show, the call-in stuff, to let everybody know, like, hey, Michael's back, he's on the loose, watch out for him, he's coming for me and my baby, whatever. And at the same time, Dr. Loomis and Paul Rudd hear this broadcast. They both go on kind of a little small investigation that ends up having their paths cross, where they have to work together. And Tommy Doyle hasn't seen Loomis in ages, since the original Halloween 1 and 2, mainly Halloween 1. I really like all this stuff with the characters. I think Donald Pleasence is very clearly sick while he's in this movie. He clearly does not feel good. He clearly was about to go soon. I think this film, I think he passed away like 5 months before the movie actually released, which is really sad. Donald Pleasence, you can tell he feels like trash, but you can tell he still cared about the film, about the fans. He tried. And I love him for that. I honor that about him. Great guy. It is hard to watch him in this movie because of certain moments where he should be rushing. He can't. He can't. He's sick, and I get that. I'm not going to complain about that. But it's hard to watch, nonetheless. Paul Rudd playing Tommy Doyle is very bad. It's very bad. It's not Paul Rudd either. I think it's a script thing. From the trauma that Tommy experienced when he was a kid on Halloween in '78, he's kind of robotic. He's kind of weird, in a weird way. Like, not in a movie weird way, but like, he's always talking like this. And he's just creepy. He's watching people at the Myers house through a freaking telescope. Dude, they're not even like 10 yards away from you, or whatever that distance would be. You don't need to watch them through a telescope. You really don't. You could literally just stand in your front yard, do some yard work, and just kind of take a peek every once in a while. While you're pulling some weeds or something. That's what you could do, Tommy. Why do you gotta be weird like that? His performance here is so bizarre, and I kind of like it. I kind of find it charming. It's not because Paul Rudd is deliberately making it charming. It's such a stupid, weird choice, like a Halloween 5 type of choice, that, I don't know, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Cara, like I said, I like. They recast Jamie for this. She's in the first 15-20 minutes. She's bad, really bad. It's not really the actress' fault. It's Mustafa Akkad's fault. It's everybody's fault that wasn't Jamie or Danielle Harris, except for the actress they put here. What else is there to talk about? Again, I already talked about Michael. I really like the look of him here. I think the writing in the film, aside from the cult stuff that I really feel like bogs this movie down, but I understand why it's there because of the producer's cut. When you see it, it makes a lot more sense why that was so ingrained in this movie. For me, it feels tacked on. For this particular version, I think a lot more should have been reshot for this movie, but with Donald Pleasence's death, it's kind of hard to do that. I don't think he finished filming, as far as I know. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that, but I could be wrong about that. I don't think he finished filming. So it would be hard to go back and even refilm certain scenes because Donald Pleasence is in so many scenes in this movie. It's a shame. It really is how the film turned out. But for me, even though we have really choppy editing, a lot of flashy Photoshop types of lighting, a lot of really bizarre choices for the storytelling, a lot of bizarre characters, all of that stuff, I really like it. I like it a lot. Even the kid who plays Danny, the son that I talked about that we don't know his dad, he's having visions of the Man in Black, maybe even like how Michael did back in the day when he killed his sister, Judith. It's such a different movie in the series, but again, it's really the one that started this new, let's not feel like the original 5 Halloween movies. Even Halloween 5 felt like the original 4. Originally 4, 2, and 1, I mean. But this one kind of loses that a little bit. And I kind of like it for that. I kind of admire that about it. It's very 1990s. Everything from the look of it, with the beautiful, seems like it's actually shot during the fall look, with all the orange and reds and yellows, the decorations, the parties, all of that stuff. In a town where they banned Halloween of all things. Yeah, they did that in this movie. That was kind of neat as a twist, because they talk about it, I think in Halloween 4 or 5, they make mention, somebody says somewhere in one of those movies, that they wished Halloween would be banned in that entire town. Or that it probably would be, or something to that extent. And then it happened. And in this movie you watch it, and people are protesting that. People are trying to celebrate Halloween on Halloween because of rebelliousness, if you will. Which I thought was kind of cool. I would do that. I like Halloween. So what else can I talk about? Again, the look of the movie is very nice. The directing, again, for the film looking cheap, the directing feels cheap. It doesn't really have a lot of a lot of love put into it, if you know what I mean. It doesn't feel as crafty as even like Part 4 did for me. Especially not as close to like 3, 2, and 1. Mainly 3 and 1. There's not really any CGI, not really any practical effects. There's some good kills in the film, some really good kills that are even better in the producer's cut. Some of them are different from the producer's cut quite a bit. There's not really many practical effects per se, nothing you really see too long, that really lingers too long, but the little glimpses you see here and there, in my opinion, look really good. Some of the best of the franchise, aside from, like, again, the bigger budget stuff like Halloween 3 or Halloween 2. Halloween 4 has some cool kills in it, but it doesn't really have any gore or practical effects in it, you know what I mean? So that's kind of hard to compare that to this, but yeah. The glimpses of what we see here in the brutality, pretty cool in my opinion. I like that stuff. Let's see, what else do we have on the list here? The music. Holy shit. One of my favorite things about this film is that, number one, to start off with, it reintroduced the Halloween theme as a rock version before Rob Zombie ever did that. I don't think H2O did that. I don't think Resurrection did that. Rob Zombie did it, and for whatever reason, I always thought he was the first one to do it. Mind you, I didn't see this film growing up. The rock version, the guitar version of the old John Carpenter theme for Halloween in this movie, I love it. I love it, and it's only in the theatrical cut. It's not in the producer's cut. I'm currently watching it. I haven't heard it one time. They have the traditional, original rendition from the old movie in that producer's cut. In this one, it's a guitar riff, and it sounds so great. You know in the original films, when Michael is stalking somebody, and it's like, duh, dun dun, duh, dun dun. You know that whole thing? The way it's done here, I kind of like and kind of hate. It's kind of just like a drum beat with something else mixed in there. I can't figure out what it is. With the echo on the sound design, I can't really figure out on this version or the movie itself. Again, I don't know. But there's something added in this time. It's like a drum, and it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't sometimes. I don't know. It's very odd. One of the other things I love is a song in here. I do not know the band. I have them on my playlist on YouTube for music I love. But there's a song in here called And Fools Shine On. And it's amazing. I never can hear that song in this movie or on its own on my, if I'm listening to like my playlist on YouTube at work or something and that song comes on. Just the opening melody with the guitar strings and the small amount of bass, it just reminds me of fall. It just feels like Halloween. It's not even a Halloween song. It just feels like Halloween to me. It feels like the fall time in October, and like you would feel the wind blowing at nighttime on a dark street. Like it just fits. That song, And Fools Shine On, is one of my favorite songs in any movie of this franchise. And the way it's utilized for this movie, mainly in just one, let's drive a car from one location to another location, to like a school campus or whatever, it works so well for that. And then it's used for the closing credits of the movie, and every time I watch this movie, even though the ending of the movie is kind of weak, the way they fight Michael and whatever, even in the theatrical cut, which I like better than in the producer's cut, even as weak as the ending is, when it cuts to credits, and that beautiful, beautiful song, and that beautiful melody of the guitars, and the windy blues bass type of sound to it starts kicking in, I love it. It hits me in a way that I don't have words to describe. I love it so much. There's just no words for it. It's absolutely a melody, dude. It's so atmospheric. I love it. With all that being said, the music may be the best part of this entire film. That and the look of Michael Myers and Cara herself, who I like a lot. This movie's very flawed. As I said, mainly those flaws come from choppy editing, trying to make a different version of a film that wasn't doing too well in the producer's cut. Again, I like this one a lot more than I like the producer's cut. The producer's cut is okay. The mystic stuff is too much for me. There's a lot of that in that film. I don't like it. It doesn't fit for me. But for this movie, in my opinion, I love it. It's one of my favorites of the franchise. I look forward to watching the most, up there with Halloween 1, Halloween 3, Halloween 2. It really hits me. And even though I'm not a Cult of Thorn fan, I think it's one of the worst ideas ever put in the franchise, I just really like what we did here. I really like the execution of this movie. The style of it, again, is more than the substance, but it works. And to come out the same year as Scream, oh my god is that tragic. Oh my god is that tragic, dude. Can you imagine going to see Scream earlier that year, knowing you're gonna get a new Halloween film? I don't know what was in the trailer. Maybe they talked about the Cult of Thorn, I don't know. But can you imagine going to see that? And the look of that movie, the design of it, the way it's filmed, everything. And then you go to see this, and you see the way it looks like a low-budget, straight-to-video movie that I'm convinced, again, that it was supposed to be. It's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing to me. Anyway, with all that being said, I'm a big fan of this old 1995 film. I know a lot of people hate it, but I'm a massive fan of it, and I highly recommend it if you have not seen the theatrical version of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Yes, it's a mess in a lot of ways. Yes, the cult thing is very stupid, as I said. One of the worst things to happen to the series, as I said. But the look of it, the feel of it, I think aside from the original movie, and aside from Halloween 4 and Halloween 3, this feels like fall, and I love that about it. It really works for me in a lot of ways. This is like a blasphemous review for a lot of people. I think anybody who tells me this is worse than Halloween 5, you're a fool. I'm sorry, you might have your tastes and your opinions, but in my opinion, going from that to this, no way. No way. Halloween 5 is way, way worse. Way goofier. This one has goofy moments to it too. Some really stupid things are here, like the Cult of Thorn. But this feels like a better movie. It's like what I said about Hellraiser Inferno when I reviewed the Hellraiser movies recently. Inferno is my favorite Hellraiser movie. I love it. Yeah, it feels cheaper than the previous ones. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like a Hellraiser movie. It feels like a script with Pinhead attached to it, you know? I get all that, but it's still my favorite. And I'm not saying this one's my favorite, but it's one of them. It's probably my top 3 of the whole franchise. I don't know. I haven't seen H2 in a while. I love Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie. But as you can tell, I have some very controversial opinions about these movies. Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. If I had to rate this old movie on a 5-star basis, I'd give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I know, I said it. It's got some massive issues, but things that do not affect me most of the time. Things that I think are watered down enough in this version of the film, not in the producer's cut, but in this particular version of the film, that I think it's fun to watch. I have a good time every time I watch it. I think there's some some goofier moments in here, like the Red Rain scene, that they kind of are so goofy they should ruin the movie, but they don't for me. I don't know why. I feel like this would have ruined it if I had grown up on it. I feel like I would hate this, but the one thing it doesn't have in it is a crying Michael Myers. And that immediately makes it a better movie. Anyway, have you seen this film? What do you think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down below. I would love to hear what you folks have to say about it. Again, 4 out of 5 stars for me. I really like it a lot. I recommend it a lot. Thank you guys for watching. What are your opinions on this movie? Which one do you like more? The theatrical cut or the producer's cut? Again, I plan on having a review for the producer's cut at some point, and I hope you'll tune in for that as well. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you all. Happy Halloween, and goodbye.